In the heart of the vast spaceport city of Zelra, there was a gathering like no other. Every few cycles, the most extravagant auction in the galaxy was held, drawing buyers from the furthest reaches of the universe. Here, beings of all kinds, rare species, highly valued genetic specimens, extraordinary individuals, were sold to the highest bidder. This was not just an auction. It was a spectacle, a celebration of wealth, power, and rarity. Nova stood at the center of it all, her eyes fixed on the cold floor beneath her feet. The spotlight above her cast long shadows across the sleek marble surface, illuminating her fragile figure. She could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on her, watching her every move. It was the kind of attention no one ever wanted, and yet she had no choice but to accept it. The young girl, no more than 18 years old, had lived a life marked by rejection. Born on a forgotten colony on the outer rim of the galaxy, she had always been told she was less than others. She had been born with a flaw, a defect in her Omega genes. Unlike most Omega girls, who were sought after for their ability to carry powerful children and bond with high-ranking leaders, Nova had been deemed useless. Her genetic code had failed her, making her unfit for the breeding programs of powerful families. She was weak, a disappointment, and a burden to everyone around her. Her parents had abandoned her at a young age, and she had been passed from one institution to another. Finally, she found herself here, in the cold, impersonal world of auctions. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the large hall, calling out Nova's name as if she were a mere object to be sold. Nova, a rare Omega girl with unique genetics, only 18 years old. Weak, but valuable to the right buyer. Starting bid, 1,000 credits. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she couldn't help but feel a pang of shame. The words weak, but valuable stung. She knew that was the only reason anyone would even think about bidding on her potential, her rarity despite her obvious flaw. But to her, it only made her feel more like a commodity. The buyers were gathered around the grand hall, sitting on high platforms that overlooked the stage. They were all wealthy, influential beings, each one as cold as the next. Most of them were alien species with eyes that shone with greed. Some of them were looking for genetic material to strengthen their own lineages, while others wanted rare individuals for their own purposes. But none of them looked at Nova with kindness or even interest. They saw her as a product, nothing more. The bidding started slowly. One by one, offers were made, each one lower than the next. No one seemed eager to buy her. No one seemed willing to pay for a defective Omega girl, no matter how rare she was. Nova's face burned with embarrassment as she stood there, waiting. The whispers of the crowd reached her ears. She could hear the laughter, the disdain. It was as if she were invisible, just another face in the crowd. But then, as the auctioneer was about to call it off, a new voice rang out, one that silenced the entire hall. 10,000 credits. The crowd fell silent. Everyone turned to look. Standing in the farthest corner of the hall, a tall figure had emerged. His presence alone seemed to fill the room. His dark cloak flowed behind him as he moved with purpose, and his posture radiated power and authority. He was an alien, a species that Nova had never seen before. His skin was a deep shade of blue, with intricate silver markings that shimmered across his arms. His eyes, though, were what drew everyone's attention. They were cold, yet sharp, like two piercing blades. There was something about him that made the room feel smaller, quieter. He stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Nova. The moment their eyes met, Nova's breath caught in her throat. She had expected the usual indifferent stares from the crowd, but his eyes, they held something different. Something that made her feel seen, something that made her feel both terrified and safe. The Emperor of the Zorik Empire. The auctioneer spoke in hushed tones. King Zyron Vrax has made his bid. The crowd was stunned. The Zorik Empire was one of the most powerful and influential empires in the galaxy, and their rulers were known for their strength, their intelligence, and their ruthlessness. Why would an emperor, someone with everything, want a rejected, broken Omega girl? The auctioneer hesitated for a moment, glancing nervously at Zyren, but then he spoke again, louder this time. 10,000 credits. Do I hear 15,000? 15,000 for this unique specimen. But the crowd remained still. No one dared to raise their bid, not with Xiren's presence looming over them. They knew better than to challenge the Emperor of the Zoric Empire. His reputation was one of absolute power. Sold. The auctioneer called out, his voice shaking slightly. To King Xiren Vrax, Nova stood frozen as the auctioneer closed the bidding. She felt a strange sense of disbelief. She had been sold. To him. Xiren Vrax, the Emperor. Xiren walked down the steps of the platform, his boots making no sound against the marble floor. He was as regal in his movements as his appearance. When he reached Nova, he extended his hand toward her, not in a commanding gesture, but one of quiet authority. He was not like the other buyers who had treated her like a mere object. There was something more. His eyes softened slightly, though the sharpness never left them. Come with me. Nova. His voice was low and calm, yet it carried an undeniable weight. She didn't know why. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was being sold as a commodity. Something about Xiren's presence made her feel as though she was being taken somewhere important. Somewhere she might finally be able to find a purpose. With a shaky breath, she took his hand. The moment their fingers touched, she felt a strange warmth, a connection, one she couldn't quite understand. Xiren did not rush her. He walked alongside her, guiding her off the stage and through the grand hall toward the exit. The crowd parted for them, still shocked, still murmuring in disbelief. No one dared to approach the Emperor, not even to question his decision, as they walked down the hall toward the exit. Xiren spoke again, his voice softer now, almost thoughtful. You may not understand why I've chosen you, Nova, but I believe you hold something that no one else sees. Nova wanted to ask him what he meant, but the words caught in her throat. She was too overwhelmed by everything that had just happened. She had been rejected her entire life, and now she was standing next to the most powerful man in the galaxy, about to leave everything she had ever known behind. What was this strange feeling that was building inside her? Was it fear? Hope? Or something else entirely? They reached the ship that would take her far away from Zelra, the Xinovra Xiren's flagship. It was enormous, sleek, and filled with alien technology that she had never seen before. She looked up at it, feeling both awe and trepidation. Xiren, however, didn't seem to notice her hesitation. He simply led her aboard, offering her a seat and allowing her time to adjust, as the ship's engines hummed to life, taking them toward the stars. Nova stared out the window, her mind racing with questions. Why had Xiren bought her? Was this the beginning of a new life, or was it another form of captivity? She didn't know the answers, but for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to, as the Xenovera flew into the vast expanse of space. Nova couldn't help but wonder, what would the future hold for a rejected Omega girl, bought by an alien king? The vast emptiness of space stretched before Nova as she stood at the observation window of the Xenovara. The ship glided effortlessly through the stars, its engines humming softly, almost like a lullaby. She had never imagined that her life would lead her here aboard the flagship of the Emperor of the Zoric Empire. It felt like a dream, but everything she saw told her it was real. The ship was like nothing she had ever seen before. Its sleek design, the way it moved so smoothly through space, and the strange technologies she couldn't understand left her in awe. Nova had been aboard the Xinovara for 3 days now, and everything was so different from the life she had known. There was no constant coldness, no rejection, no feeling of being unwanted. Xiren Vrax, the Emperor, had treated her with a calm respect that was unlike anything she had experienced before. He never ordered her around or made her feel like a possession. It was strange, and Nova didn't know what to make of it. But for the first time, she felt. Sin.Ran had taken her to a spacious room on the ship, far from the busy corridors where the crew worked. It was quiet here, peaceful. The walls were made of some kind of reflective material that shimmered like water, and the room was filled with soft lights that created a calm, relaxing atmosphere. She had been given a comfortable bed, clean clothes, and food luxuries she hadn't experienced in years. She sat by the window now, looking at the endless stars. She tried to push away the anxiety gnawing at her. What was Xiren really after? Why had he paid so much for her? She didn't understand. The Emperor was a ruler of immense power, a being who could have anything he wanted. Why choose her? A rejected Omega girl. Someone who had been discarded by her own people? Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Before she could respond, the door slid open, and Xiren entered, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the room. He was dressed in the traditional robes of an emperor, dark and regal, with silver markings running down the sleeves. His eyes, as always, were intense, yet there was something softer about them today. "Are you comfortable, Nova?" he asked, his voice calm but with an edge of curiosity. Nova hesitated before answering. I'm fine." Her voice was quiet, unsure of how to express herself. It felt strange to be in his presence. There was something about him that made her feel both nervous and safe at the same time. She still didn't know if she could trust him, but there was a part of her that wanted to. "I'm glad to hear that," Xiren said, walking over to the desk and taking a seat. He seemed at ease, as though he was used to having his presence command attention, yet there was something genuine in his words. "I know this is all very sudden for you, but I want to make sure you understand why you're here." Nova's heart skipped a beat. She had been wondering this since the moment she boarded the Xenovra. Why was she here? What did Xiren want from her? "Why did you buy me?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. She couldn't hold back the question any longer. She had to know. Xiren regarded her for a moment, his sharp eyes studying her face as though weighing his words. "You have something unique, Nova, something that no one else sees." Nova frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" She couldn't understand. She had always been told she was nothing special, that her flaw made her weak. She had spent her life being rejected and cast aside. What could possibly be unique about her? Xiren leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "You are not like other Omegas." His voice was firm but not unkind. "I know they told you that you were broken, but that's not true. You have a rare ability, one that I believe can help me and my empire." Nova felt her pulse quicken. She was not used to hearing such words. She was used to being told she was less than others, that she had no future. "What ability?" she asked, though part of her didn't want to know. She didn't want to get her hopes up again, only to be disappointed. Xiren smiled slightly, his expression softening. "It's not something you can see easily, Nova. It's something within you. A power that connects you to people in a way that no one else can." Nova didn't understand. "But I can't do anything. I'm not like the other Omegas. I can't even bear children." Xiren's eyes softened. "That is true. But your ability is not about bearing children. It's about something far more important. It's a rare gift, something that can unite people, calm them, heal them in ways no one else can." Nova blinked, stunned. She had always thought of herself as weak, someone who couldn't make a difference. But Xiren was speaking of her as though she had something valuable, something powerful. "I believe you can help me bring peace to my empire." "Nova," Xiren continued, his voice steady but filled with a deep intensity. "My empire is divided, torn apart by civil war. I need someone who can bring unity, someone who can connect with others in a way that no weapon or army ever could. You are that person." Nova was silent for a long time. She had always felt so small, so insignificant. She had never imagined that anyone, let alone an emperor, would see her as someone who could make a difference. "I don't know how to do what you're asking. I've never done anything like that before." Her voice was shaky, but there was a new spark of curiosity in her eyes. Was it possible that she could help? That she had something to offer after all? Xiren's gaze softened even further. "You don't have to do anything yet, Nova. I will help you understand your abilities. Together, we can work toward creating peace. But you must trust me." The silence between them was thick with emotion. Nova looked at him, trying to process everything. It seemed impossible. How could she, someone who had never been good enough for anyone, be the key to saving an entire empire? She didn't know the answers, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Xiren was telling the truth. There was something about his words, something about the way he looked at her. that made her believe that, perhaps, she was not as broken as she had been led to believe. "I'll try, Zyron. I'll try." Her voice was quiet, but there was a new sense of determination in her words. Zyron smiled, a rare and genuine smile that made him look less like the Emperor and more like a person. "That's all I ask, Nova. You don't have to be perfect. Just be yourself, and I believe we can do something great together." Nova felt a warmth spread through her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. It was the first time someone had truly believed in her, and though she didn't fully understand what was happening, she knew one thing for certain: her life was no longer the same, and whatever lay ahead, she was ready to face it. The days passed quickly aboard the Zinovera, the ship now feeling more like home to Nova than she ever thought possible. Zyron, the Emperor, had kept his word. He didn't pressure her to do anything she wasn't ready for. Instead, he spent time explaining things not just about his empire, but about Nova's unique abilities. Every conversation, every lesson, slowly built her understanding of herself. She was beginning to realize that she was more than she had been told. She was powerful. In a way she could never have imagined, Zyron had told her that her gift was the ability to connect, not just with people, but with their hearts. She could sense their emotions, their fears, their hopes. More than that, she could help ease their pain and guide them toward understanding. It wasn't about ruling with power or force. It was about understanding others, bringing them together, and making them see the humanity in each other. It was a power that few people, even rulers, could truly understand. As Nova trained with Zyron, she started to feel a growing bond between them too. At first, it had been uncertain, even awkward, as they figured out how to trust each other. But now, as she spent more time with him, Nova couldn't deny that she felt something deeper. Zyron wasn't just an emperor to her. He was someone who saw her for who she truly was. He respected her in a way that no one ever had. And though he remained a figure of immense authority, Nova began to see the vulnerability hidden behind his calm exterior. "Are you ready?" Zyron's voice cut through her thoughts one evening as he entered her quarters. Nova turned to face him. He looked as calm as ever, his eyes deep with thought. "Ready for what?" she asked, though she had an inkling of what he was referring to. Zyron stepped closer, his gaze serious. "The peace talks. It's time." His words were firm, but his tone was softer than usual. The weight of what was to come was not lost on him. His empire had been fractured for years, torn apart by civil unrest and constant battles for control. And now, after everything, Zyron was turning to Nova. He believed she could help end the war. Not with weapons or soldiers, but with her ability to bring understanding and unity. Nova took a deep breath. The moment had come. She had trained for this, but it still felt surreal. She had never imagined herself standing at the center of an empire, let alone being the key to its peace. But Zyron believed in her. She wasn't going to let him down. "I'll do my best, Zyron," she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. Zyron smiled, and for the first time, Nova saw the full weight of gratitude in his eyes. He reached out and gently touched her shoulder. "I believe in you, Nova. You are the future of this empire." The moment was quiet, but it spoke volumes. Zyron, the mighty emperor, trusted her. He wasn't just relying on her power. He was relying on her heart. The peace talks were to be held in a grand chamber aboard the Zinovera, a room that had been prepared for this very occasion. Nova stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by representatives from both sides of the war, the loyalists to Zyron's rule and the rebel factions that had fought against him. There was tension in the air, an undercurrent of distrust and anger, but Nova felt something else. She felt hope. Sauron stood beside her, his presence commanding, yet he stepped back slightly, allowing Nova to take the first step. This wasn't a battle of armies. This was a battle of words, of emotions. Zyron knew that Nova's unique ability was the key to bringing these people together. Nova closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. She focused on the people around her. She could feel their emotions, their anger, their fear, their pain. There was so much pain. The conflict had lasted for so long, and these people had lost so much. She could feel their distrust. But she could also feel the flicker of something else, the longing for peace, for understanding. Opening her eyes, Nova stepped forward. I know you are all angry. I know you feel betrayed. But we cannot heal our wounds if we continue to fight. We cannot build a future if we hold on to the past. Her voice was calm but powerful, filled with an authority that surprised even her. She wasn't just speaking to them. She was reaching them, connecting with their hearts. The room was silent as everyone listened, the weight of her words sinking in. Nova's ability wasn't just about calming people down. It was about helping them see the bigger picture. She wasn't forcing anyone to agree with each other, but she was helping them understand each other. We have suffered for so long, but we are not so different. We all want the same thing: peace, stability, and a future where we don't have to fear each other, Nova continued. Let us put aside our weapons. Let us talk. Let us find the way forward together. As she spoke, she could feel the shift in the room. The anger, the fear, it was still there, but it was beginning to dissolve. People were listening, really listening. Zirin, standing at her side, watched in quiet amazement. He had never seen anything like it. Nova wasn't just using her ability to influence their thoughts. She was inspiring them, making them want to change. One by one. The representatives began to speak, their voices no longer filled with hostility, but with a desire to find common ground. They didn't all agree at once, but the foundation was laid. Nova had created a space for them to be heard. She had shown them that peace wasn't just possible, it was necessary. After hours of discussion, a tentative agreement was made. The war wasn't over yet, but it had been a significant step forward. Zirin stepped forward and placed a hand on Nova's shoulder. You did it, Nova? His voice was filled with pride. You have changed everything. Nova looked up at him, a quiet smile forming on her lips. We did it, Zirin. Together. In the days that followed, Nova continued to work alongside Zirin, helping to bridge the gap between the different factions of the Empire. She wasn't just the Emperor's secret weapon. She was his partner. They worked side by side, bringing the fractured Empire back together piece by piece. Nova's power wasn't about controlling people. It was about bringing them together, helping them understand each other, and healing the wounds that had been festering for so long. Zirin, too, changed during this time. As he saw the results of their work, he became more than just an emperor. He became a leader, someone who understood that power wasn't about force, it was about compassion, understanding, and trust. And that trust he had placed in Nova. One evening, as they stood together on the observation deck of the Zenevera, looking out at the stars, Zirin turned to her. I never thought I'd find someone like you, Nova. You have brought more than peace to my empire. You have brought hope, Nova smiled, her heart full. And you've brought me the chance to be something more than I ever thought I could be. Zirin nodded, his gaze softening. You are more than anyone ever saw, Nova. And together, we will lead this empire into a new future, a future built on unity, not division. As the stars stretched out before them, Nova knew that the journey wasn't over. There was still work to be done, but for the first time in her life she felt as though she had a place in the galaxy. She was not just the rejected Omega girl. She was a leader in her own right, the one who had brought peace, unity, and hope to a galaxy in turmoil. And with Zirin by her side, there was nothing they couldn't achieve.